Tired of living in constant go mode? Learn how to shift from survival to steadiness using the science of calm and the wisdom of your body. Hi, and welcome to the You World Order Showcase podcast, where we feature life, health, transformational coaches, and spiritual entrepreneurs stepping up to be the change they seek in the world. I'm your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist, on a mission to help coaches and entrepreneurs amplify their voice, monetize their message, and get visible. If you're ready to start attracting premium clients without chasing algorithms or hunting people down like a banshee on a mission, head over to coachesalchemist.com and schedule your free client acquisition audit. It's the first step to building a business where your clients seek you out rather than you having to hunt them down. Today, we are chatting with Renee Sabina Kiesman. Renee is an educator, therapist, and founder of Love to Learn, a multidisciplinary clinic that blends neuroscience, somatic awareness, and heart-centered leadership with nearly 30 years of experience. She helps parents and professionals move from burnout to balance, teaching them how to regulate their nervous system, lead with compassion, and create lasting embodied change. Welcome to the show, Renee. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Jill. It's great to be with you.
All right, let me ask you the big question. What's the most significant thing, in your opinion, as individuals we can do to make an impact on how the world is going?
I think the single thing that we can do is be compassionate in our own lives, with ourselves starting, and then the people closest to us.
It really does have a ripple effect, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. You can't give it if you don't have it, right? And so if you can't show yourself compassion and you show yourself grace, then when the rubber hits the road, uh, you're going to be hard pressed to be able to give that to those that you really want to, your children, your family, those that you serve. And that's truly the essence of um, what we try to do in this next chapter of evolution and applied behavior analysis and training uh, up and coming leaders to go out into the world and provide early intervention and applied behavior analysis to families and children is leading with a compassionate voice, a compassionate heart. We as behavior analysts are trained on data, and it's very scientific. And we became behavior analysts because we care about data and we care about making progress. And pairing that and blending that with presence and somatic awareness and trauma-informed care is, I think, what takes a beautiful science, applied behavior analysis, and truly adds the grease to truly make it fly.
Yeah, it's what makes it go from the theoretical world into the practical applied world. And I love how you're focusing on parents, because I think often parents get caught up in it's the either or. They go out and they deal in the real world, and then they have to come back and deal with their kids. And that often there's a disconnect between how we function in the world with our peers and our clients and our employees, and then how we deal with our children. And we forget often that, we're raising little human beings who are also going to have to make this bridge into a different world, not this safe cocoon that they're in. Or sometimes it's not even a safe cocoon. They're being traumatized in
Yeah,
whatever way they came here to be traumatized in.
yeah. It's interesting what goes into that, as I work with other behavior analysts and speech language pathologists and occupational therapists. We have so much knowledge in our head, and we have so much beautiful theory and science and new applications coming out. And we also have a learning history and how we were spoken to when we were raised. And that plays a part in how we end up executing our knowledge, our wisdom, and our lived experience into our behavior. And so it is humbling, I think, for many people that are highly trained, um, to know where their edges are and where improvements need to be made. And truly also what fascinates me is how our nervous system interfaces with all of that, and regulating our nervous system so that we can align our behaviors with our values and what we know we want to do and how we want to go out into the world and how we want to treat our children and our coworkers and the feedback that our nervous system gives us when we're trying to execute all of those visions of ourself and our behavior.
Does it also help to, because we do sometimes compartmentalize our different roles in the world, does it help us to bring them back together to be more cohesive? To me, it seems like when you're going through these different segmented experiences on a daily basis. I mean, it's like I go to work, I'm this person. I come home, I'm this person, and I'm this person. And then I go to a meeting or an event, and I'm somebody else. Or I meet up with my friends, I'm somebody else. Does it help? Does it seem like that is part of the cause of anxiety that's so frequent in our community and the distress that we feel in our bodies when that anxiety starts like coming up because of the disassociation that we're experiencing in all of these different roles?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can for certain people. I mean, I definitely know as a parent myself, when I come home, I have a little
Mhm.
bit of a mindset of like, oh, okay, now I'm going to be able to relax or reset. And yet I have a child in which that needs support, and so that those messages don't always align. Um, and when you think you're off duty, you're really on duty. And so I think it's aligning, for me, it's aligning expectations. Um, and having realistic expectations of when I'm going to be able to truly take care of myself and building in space um, to take care of myself, um, so that I can show up in every environment the way that I want to. Um, but I think we all want to integrate it. I think we all want to show up in that same space in all those places. But I think there are multiple, uh, whether it's your learning history or your expectations or your planning. When you're juggling working and being a parent, a lot of planning has to go into your day, and it's really easy to move from, okay, it's all lined out. That's great. We have it together. We're an A+ student to, oh, wait a minute. We just missed something or wait, where
Here
did the
comes the
soccer shoes
wrench.
go? And have to hustle back. And I think having enough bandwidth, um, again, back to the nervous system, to kind of laugh about it and be like, okay, I guess we weren't meant to be there on time. That's okay. Let's go get those shoes and move on. And so, um, I do talk with so many parents and new parents, and it's a lot of moms in work and even outside of work. And it is parenting is much harder than anyone ever imagined. And
And it
and
doesn't get any easier.
no, right? It's a skill set, and the energy it takes um, to show up and to hold space for the most important people in your life is most of ours priority. What's most important in most people's lives are the well-being of our children, our family, our community, our parents. Um, and and we hold ourselves to high standards. Most of us do. Again, especially people that are versed in all the things that we're talking about, and so the standards are pretty high. um yeah, yeah.
Allowing yourself to have grace. I ran into a young woman yesterday at the grocery store because that's where I run into everybody. Her mom, who's she's been a dear friend for 25 years now. we met in Colorado through something or another, but we've continued our relationship, and we helped them move to the valley, and then they moved out. Anyway, so her daughter is an adult now. She's 28, 27, 28, somewhere in there. She has two sons. They're all under 5, and she just had a little girl who was born very prematurely.
Mhm.
And she has been through the ringer for the last 4 months. This child, the hospitals out here are not really all that great. And so she's been going down to Salt Lake, which is like a 4-hour drive for her, or then going over to Boise, which is the other direction, 4 hours. And she's so worn out, and it's all she wants is just to like go home and nurse her baby and have her baby like
Yeah.
thrive. But
Yeah.
she's being pulled in all of these directions. And I mean, I was having a conversation with her just about how are you doing as a human being?
Yeah.
And she's just like tears are welling up in her eyes. She's like, I'm barely
Yeah.
holding it together. It's
So hard. And when they're that young, you're not sleeping. You're not sleeping. It's
yeah,
difficult to feed yourself, in a in a time and a space where your digestion can actually work properly, because you need to be calm, and you need to regulate, and you need to be present for your own food consumption. And in our society, in our culture, and the way that it's set up, many not many people have those types of supports that would allow us to take care of ourselves in the way that we need to, in order to have the strength and the bandwidth, and the resilience to show up and at those times with the energy that we want to. It's hard.
it is hard. And it's nice when you have some place for people to go, or that they can connect with others who are on the same journey that you're on. And I'm a big proponent of communities because it helps. You're not, as the founder of the community, you're not the one that everybody has to learn from or turn to. You can learn from each other, and you can support each other. And in my communities, it's so exciting when I see people interacting with each other and they've kind of left me out. I'm like, oh, wow, look at this. It's
Yeah.
great. It's
Yeah.
working. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
everybody's helping each other to succeed. And I'm a big proponent of
Yeah.
a rising tide lifts all ships. I'll
Yeah.
share what I got with everybody because
Yeah.
it's what makes the world a better place.
Yeah. That's one of the elements of trauma informed care, is that you're with your peers. Uh,
Yeah.
that is what people need, is to be with peers, and to be seen by their peers, and to be supported by their peers.
And knowing that you're not the only one, because in this, we're so connected, but we're so alone right now. And to go through an experience like my young friends going through, or even just day-to-day life, it's difficult
Yeah, it is.
to as women, primarily women. And, men do struggle too, but I think women have traditionally held all of these roles that they're just like they're trying to fit them all together, and they're supposed to just like smile and it's all
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
and nothing ever goes wrong, and instead of just being like, yeah, today was not the best day. We couldn't find the shoes. Yep, we're
Yeah.
15 minutes late to the soccer game. Just let them on the field and let them have fun.
Yeah.
I just I can't stress myself out about shoes when there's so many
Yeah.
other things on my plate too. Like,
Yeah.
am I gonna have groceries? Do I have to drag all the kids to the grocery store
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the way home?
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It is. There's a lot to put together. And there's so many distractions. I think and there's so many distractions. So there's so much calling for our attention. Um and so yeah, really leaning into compassion and ultimately also making choices as to what you're going to prioritize and what's important to you. And also knowing when those things are going to change. Like for me, I didn't cook for a very long time. It was taken. That was mommy's cooking, watch me dial the numbers. That's the
And being
best
good with
that's
it.
gonna come. And didn't I cook that Indian food so deliciously by the end of that meal? And then there comes times where it's like, oh my gosh, that's not feeling good for us anymore. That's not in alignment with my health goals. That's not. I feel like that chapter has sunsetted. Now I need to level up, and do something a little bit different. And so it's changing, right? It's always in motion. Um,
There's
and
seasons.
seasons, I love that. Yeah, there are seasons for all of it. And teaching children, and fellow parents, um, about the seasons and leaning into those seasons and kind of, I think one of the things that I've always done is to look for the purpose of being in a certain season. It's like, okay, I'm here. There's got to be some value. I'm sure there's something I need to learn here. It's why I'm here. And being comfortable, because I believe and I witness for myself and other people, that anxiety is often created because you think you're supposed to be somewhere that you're not. Um, and really, we use in applied behavior analysis acceptance and commitment therapy. And acceptance, it's accepting, I'm here, this is where I'm supposed to be, this is the journey I'm supposed to be on, and I'm here for a good reason, and now let's make some value out of this, and let me take it forward. So yeah, I mean, I think people and women and parents need that reflected back to them. Yeah.
I used to be very, very much a Bible thumper. And one of
Okay.
my favorite verses was, and it came to pass.
Yeah.
Nothing is always and forever. It always
Yeah.
passes. And then you move into a different season and a different experience. But you can have permission to enjoy the experience you're having right this moment without worrying about what's going to come next, because it's going to come. No matter what you do or how much you worry about it, there's going to be another experience to be had.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can choose how you're going to interpret these
Yeah.
experiences and the stories you're going to tell around them. And if you've had experiences that you've been talking about in the past that don't impact your life positively as the present, then make up a different story about that and carry it forward, and it will change your life.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me think about the families that we serve when they first come to us, and they don't have a diagnosis. They just know that their child is not meeting their developmental milestones, and the panic that they experience, sometimes grief and fear and anxiety, and keeping those concepts close during those times when there's just uncertainty. And then we know uncertainty because we've been living uncertainty for a long time, um, in our adult lives here in the last 10 years. We know what it's like to see political movement, to see COVID, to see so much happen, and even to walk our children through those transitions. Um, there needs to be, and it's such an abstract concept of this too shall pass, um and that this, and I often tell my daughter this, like, this feels really big right now, but in 10 years this will just, be a dot on the map of what happens. Uh, and sharing, helping families shift out of that fight and flight space, um to be
Judgment and
able.
comparison too. I think people get caught up in judging the
Yes.
progress of where their kids are or where they feel they should be in their careers, and
Yeah.
um and comparing to other people, but you don't know what those other people have gone through, and they're in a different situation. And yeah, maybe everything looks rosy on the outside to somebody that doesn't know the other things that they're going through, because nobody is living the ideal life for
Yeah.
them. They always want something different.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what makes us human. It is. It is. I was just reading this newsletter by a friend of mine of about the concept of when success doesn't feel the way you thought it was going to feel. Maybe you've hit all your numbers, but it it still doesn't fill you the way you thought you would be filled. And so we often as humans can think the grass might be greener on the other side, or um, they must be fine because their child is making friends more easily, or their child is seeming to uh, fit in more easily, and they're often, if there's strengths in one area, their weaknesses in others, and it's just, again, it's our humanity and having compassion and some humor, I think, also for ourselves and our process and our journey
And
is helpful.
celebrating the little wins that happen every day. Gratitude goes a long way to
Yeah,
making us feel better and calming our nervous system down. If we teach our body to recognize, hey, that was a really big deal. And even if you just go in the bathroom and look in the mirror and tell yourself, well done, you did it today. Um, for the little things, like
yeah,
I have some big goals for things that I've got coming up. But I've accomplished some big things so far, and I hardly ever talk about it. And it's like, it's a big deal. Some of the things
yeah.
I've done, I've hit the bestseller list with a book that was published.
Beautiful.
That's a big deal. A lot of people
Congratulations.
haven't done that.
Which book is that? Tell me. Tell me what book.
Sacred Redesign. It was a
Beautiful.
group book. It was a collaborative effort, but
Beautiful.
it was
Yeah,
it's a great book, and it was a
yeah,
lot of fun. The community that came together to create that book and to
yeah.
make it a bestseller, because there's ways to do it. But we all worked together to accomplish that. And so to me, that's a really big
Beautiful.
deal.
That
Um,
is.
the podcast, it's a big deal.
Yeah,
I've interviewed almost 600 guests on this podcast. We've had more than 1 million downloads. It's those are
yeah,
those are big numbers
yeah.
that I just
That
kind of
is
like
huge.
casually
That's,
brush off.
yes, yes. And we forget that, right? We lose track of that so much. My my husband and I were having a conversation about our daughter, um, because she had asked, she said, Mom, I want you to tell me you're proud of me more. And I said, is that something you're wanting? And I can do that for you. And then my husband said, it's one thing to say it's that you're proud of her. And I'm thinking if she's asking for that, it's meaning she's needing it. So I'm going to give that for sure. But the second step to that is, what is she proud of herself for, as you just did, and learning how to do that for yourself. So at night we take turns. One night I'll start with what I'm proud of her for the day before we go into our gratitude, because we do gratitude as well. And then last night, it was like, okay, you start. What happened today that you're proud of yourself for? And those are skills. Those are skills to do. I think it's much more socially accepted. I have found to talk about what's not working well, because people can still get very intimidated when I love the words brag or celebration. I love those practices.
Mhm.
They feel good for me. I feel inspired when I witness you talking about your celebrations, and then that makes me think about my celebrations. It's contagious. Um, and in general culture, it isn't always welcomed. And so I do think we are at a turning point culturally where it is becoming more common to celebrate these practices of um, pointing out what makes us feel good and what's going well for us. we actually started at our company. We haven't done it for a while, but we used to start meetings with what we call celebrations. One, because sometimes we wouldn't even know the good things that were happening, across the desk from each other. It's like, oh, I'm glad, like, thanks for leaning in on that. Um, and then we went to, let's talk about the celebrations and let's talk about the challenges. And that was equally good because creating space for both. So
And then you're not always focusing on the bad, but you
yes.
can fix, it's not even the bad. It's just the things that didn't go as expected. And so
Yeah.
then you're just focusing on this is a problem that needs to be solved versus this this is a character reference for whoever brought the thing up.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well said. Well said on that. Yeah.
So
Mm.
how do you work with your clients? Is it in community? Is it in groups? Is it
Yeah.
one-on-one? How does
Yeah.
all that
Thanks for
look?
asking. So we have a clinic in Huntington Beach, California,
Mhm.
where we see clients up till 7 years of age. And that is a small element of who we serve. The majority of the people we serve are in the home, in the community, and in the school. So our staff go out to see them. We have what's called a three-tier staff. We have behavior analysts that oversee all of the programs. We have mid-tier staff. Some have master's degrees, some have bachelor's degrees. All of our mid-tiers are in pursuit of becoming board certified behavior analysts. Some of them have been with us, our company, for 10 years. Now, those people, we have two of them right now that are sitting for their, well, yes, they've studied, they've collected all their hours, and they're waiting to take their BCBA exam. And so our mid-tiers are incredibly knowledgeable. And then we have our frontline staff. Some call them RBTs, registered behavior technicians, other call them ABAT or behavior interventionists. And these are people I started at this level. They're people that are either in college or coming out of college, um, or in a completely different phase of their life. I once had someone, in much more of her senior stage in life, who was a fabulous behavior interventionist. I mean, she did more than our college kids. She had just so much energy and she brought so much life to that family. She stays in my mind. But typically the front line is a stepping stone to get your foot in the door. A lot of times when people find us, they've never heard of applied behavior analysis. It is one of the newer sciences. Um, and there are also a lot of people that once they learn about the science and they do the work, like I did, they ask, like, okay, how can I do this more? This is really interesting. And they go back to school and they get a master's degree in applied behavior analysis and then go and do their BCBA coursework. And so for us, I mean, there's a huge shortage of board certified behavior analysts and behavior interventionists throughout the entire world. There are constantly families waiting in every city and state for these services because we just can't hire fast enough, and we can't train fast enough to meet the needs um, of what's out there.
So how
Yeah.
would people like come to you if they and why would they come to you specifically? Like if they had a child that wasn't meeting certain standards in
Yeah.
school or they were acting out or
Yeah, so chronologically, I'll just kind of take you the different entry points.
yeah.
Very commonly, a parent might notice that their child isn't speaking or moving um, or attending in a way that they think they should be at a certain age, and they will then go to the pediatrician. And then in California, we have places called regional centers that help find vendors, which we are one of, to give a developmental evaluation. And so in those developmental evaluations, we have a speech pathologist, an occupational therapist, and a behavior analyst come together to look at all the elements um, of their development and then measure, where are they chronologically versus where are they developmentally. And some of those learners will not qualify for any services. The parents will be greatly relieved to say, there might be a slight delay, but there's nothing to worry about. Just keep doing this or that, and on they go. And then there will be other children who will show a delay, and then they will move into an early intervention program. There doesn't need to be any diagnosis. Not all children will ever have a diagnosis when they go into that program. It's a program that's really intended to close the gap of developmental and chronological performance. Now, a small fraction of those children and learners will go on to get a diagnosis of autism, Down syndrome, they know when they're born, but other developmental delay,
Mhm.
or speech delay, or other learning difference. Families also come to us once they have a diagnosis. After they've received one, we then take them through insurance or private pay so that we can do it in a traditional ABA program. And when I say traditional, I don't mean traditional in the sense of the types of ABA. ABA has had a long and well, it's still a newer science. It's gone through many phases of its own evolution, and it has grown into a much softer application than it started in the beginning. Of the science, it was a little bit more rigidly taught and disseminated. I actually got introduced to it in that form and got turned off and went away and became a special education teacher and said, that's not for me, but I still really love this population and I wanted to contribute in a different form. And somehow the field just called me back, and I got introduced to a different application through verbal behavior. We were studying Vincent Carbone and Mark Sundberg, and Dr. James Pad. Oh my gosh, I'm saying his name wrong. Sundberg and Pad. I haven't said it in a while, but those that know what I'm
It's all
talking about
good.
will know what I'm talking about. Um, and James will email me at some point and make fun of me for not being able to recall in the podcast. But
I hate it when that happens, and it does happen to
oh
me too. I'm like,
yeah,
I know
yeah.
that person, and their name is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not
Partington,
there.
James Partington. Oh my God.
Good
Thank
job.
you. I knew it
Good
was
job.
gonna come. It was like, but anyway, they came out with a verbal behavior approach, which was what I or what is what brought me back to the field of ABA. And I said, okay, I can get behind this. This makes sense. It really focused on play-based learning and natural environment teaching. And it really um, saw the child as as a small human being that had needs and wants and desires, and they wanted to respect their dignity and give them voice. And the way that you begin that training is truly by giving them voice and developing a relationship with them and saying, what is it that you want? Let's get you some words, let's get you some language, so that first and foremost we can get you the things you love most, cookies and jumps and tickles and all of that fun stuff. And then we'll teach some other things. So um that brought me in to it. And as time has gone on, I've been in the space for 30 years. And now we're bringing in somatic awareness and trauma informed care, which really for me extends that work. It gives new language, it gives new tools. We were just doing a training. We have something called CSTs, clinical skills trackers, where our supervisors go out and give feedback to our frontline staff on what skills they're really doing well and what tools they're using well and what tools that they can really um, stretch themselves on. And we recently just added an element to our CSTs that talk about somatic awareness and talk about trauma informed care and how to teach that and how to deliver that and what that really looks like. And it was such great feedback from one of the therapists that had trained at a more traditional setting years ago, and she's like, oh my god, if they would have taught me this when I first got here. And that's always like, you know you're on the right track when you're getting that feedback. And I felt the same way. That language wasn't around when I first came in, but it makes sense and it resonates, and um it really ties in when you're talking about people that have specific sensory needs. I mean, I think we all have sensory needs that we don't tend to. Some of us are a little bit more sensitive than others. Um, this language allows us to attend to those needs and to respect that the behavior isn't defiance. It isn't because they don't want to. It's because they're dysregulated and they need some help re-regulating and co-regulating with you, and they need your help, and they don't need you to be angry because you're not doing what they're not doing
They're
what
not
you
doing
want them
what
to
you
do
want
right
them to do.
now. They need you to help them get back to their center so that they can
Mhm.
um, participate in the offerings that are happening. And so I find it such a beautiful addition to the work that we've already been doing, and I love to talk about it, and I love to share it with our team members. I don't think they can get enough of it either. We hire twice a month, and I give a guided meditation to each one of our new hires or the groups when they come in. Mostly because I have to apologize. They get 60 hours of training before they see any learner, and it's a lot for them. It's a lot of concept. It's a lot of tools and techniques, and it it doesn't feel the way I necessarily want it to feel. And so I'm always apologizing. Like, our funders need you to have at least 40 hours, and I know it can feel a lot. And so I I work to disseminate more information very gently through a guided meditation. So it doesn't feel like I'm adding anything more to that pile that they have, but they get the vision of um, how how it will look for them to show up in a family's life and a child's life when they're regulated and when they're centered, and what they can offer to a child and a family from that space of regulation and compassion and relationship focused interacting. um, and a lot of times people are really moved by it because it's not something that they're used to experiencing in a training environment, and they can feel it. It's a visceral, felt sense experience for them, and it really reminds them of why they took the job, why they're in the role that they're in, and I really encourage them to come back to that in those hard moments, because it is really hard working in the home environment when there's no door to go knock on being like, question, this isn't working the way I thought it was supposed to be. You have to hold that. You have to be like, oh, that failed miserably, and I'm gonna have to tuck that away and contain that and move on to something else, and then take that to my supervisor later. And that's hard for all of us. But they do it every day, and 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 they don't have somebody, after that session that witnessed that could say, I'm really proud of you because you did blank, blank, and blank. I mean, I remember years ago as a therapist myself crying in my car after a session, and it was funny because I was being videotaped too, and I was positive that everyone could see how upset I was because I didn't do it the way that I wanted to do it. And it was actually such an amazing experience to rewatch that video to notice that I did have composure, that even though I was dying inside, you couldn't see it on my face. And that was a lesson too, because when you're young, um, you don't you don't know these things. And you want so badly to to do it right and to do it well and to make that impact. So,
Can I
yeah,
ask you a question at this point? Because
yeah.
are you when you talk about your transformative program, the inner science of change, is it are you looking for people who want to become techs, or are you looking for people who want help with their children? I or both.
Yeah, I mean, we do both, obviously. So when we hire, hiring, we in this world for any type of a work in
Mhm.
our field is after COVID, it got very difficult
Yep.
to find people that want to be in the setting. I think people just didn't want to really be they wanted computer jobs or they wanted a little bit more space after COVID, understandably so. And so, yes, we're definitely looking for people who are interested in working with children and with families at the frontline level, the mid-tier level, as well as um, the top level of BCBAs, speech therapists and occupational therapists. Um, and we are taking families. So we do both.
Awesome. And you're thinking about starting a school community to support these families? I'm going to
Are
put
you
you on the
talking about
spot.
are you talking about the school committee that you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I have in the program, and when you say school, people are probably thinking SCHOOL. They're probably thinking, am I opening up a school? We're not opening up a school, no. But I think what you're talking about is the online community. And yes, we were talking about that earlier. And we're always looking for ways to up level first and foremost how we're training people coming in. Um, we want it to be, we want it to feel the way we want it to feel, which is a good feeling. And my understanding is, and my experience with the school community is that,
SKOOL.
thank you for spelling it. My experience with it, it does bring community into the fold. And so that would very much be in alignment with a positive training experience. The more we find better retention actually when our cohorts, when we hire them, if they bond together and they're able to really support each other, they're able to tolerate the challenge of working in a home environment and get through that because then they have someone to communicate with and being like, ooh, I just had a rough session. Um, what do you think? I mean, they can always call their supervisor and do that, but a lot of times people want to call their peers before they call their supervisor and say, I think I made a mistake or I need some help. They go to the peers first. So yes, um, I would say that is on the list of things to investigate because I think that would be beneficial for our the people that onboard as well as supporting the families. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me, Renee.
It was
I'm
fun.
excited for where you're going.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. You're easy to talk to.
I try. So people can learn more about your transformative program, The Inner Science of Change, at lovetolearnconsulting.com. And we will be sure and put that in the show notes below. Thanks for tuning in today to the U World Order Showcase podcast. If you're ready to amplify your voice, monetize your mission, and get visible, your next step to attracting premium clients is to head over to thecoachesalchemist.com and schedule your free client acquisition audit. Be sure to join us for our next episode as we share what others are doing to raise the global frequency. And remember, change begins with you. You have all the power to change the world. Start today and get visible.